Last year my ex-wife had an affair and decided to leave me. Oddly enough, I felt a sense of relief when it happened. From the outside, our marriage might have looked good. But on the inside, it was completely empty. For years, I felt broken down due to the mental and financial strain she put on me. She had a habit of taking large sums of money from my account, leaving me struggling to pay our bills. Whenever I confronted her about it, she turned it around on me, blaming me for not earning enough money. No matter what I did, it was never good enough for her. Everything I did seemed to annoy her or make her angry. I would try to plan dates for us or organize family activities in hopes of spending quality time together, but she was never interested. She would complain or get upset, preferring to stay in bed and sleep instead. Eventually, I stopped trying to include her in anything, which of course led to more complaints from her. She accused me of keeping the children away from her, even though she showed no interest in participating in the first place. After some time, she began spending nights away from home. Initially, she would say she was staying at a friend's house, someone I hardly knew, but when I asked questions she became irritated and told me it was none of my business where she was. When my ex-wife decided she wanted a divorce, I found myself in a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was really worried about what my life would look like after the divorce. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel relieved that there was an end in sight to our unhappy marriage. I made it a point to carefully read all the documents her lawyer sent over. It turned out her lawyer wasn't very careful, making a lot of mistakes in the paperwork. These errors ended up delaying our divorce hearing by several months. Every time I spotted a mistake, I would send the documents back without signing them. Then, his office would have to correct and resend them, but often they would make new mistakes or repeat the old ones. There were some pretty big mistakes in the paperwork, too. They misspelled my name, her name, got both our birth dates wrong, and even messed up our child's name and birth date. They listed children that weren't ours, got our marriage date wrong, and even had our home address incorrect. They included properties we didn't own, pets we didn't have, and businesses that weren't ours, even suggesting a settlement involving $500,000 for businesses we didn't own. One of the drafts even had her lawyer's own name spelled incorrectly, which I found so funny, I laughed about it while I was in the bathroom. It took about 7 drafts before they managed to fix most of these mistakes. But even the final draft that was submitted to the court still had major errors in it. This whole process was frustrating, but also a bit amusing, because of the sheer number of mistakes and how basic they were. It made a difficult situation a little more bearable, knowing that at least these mix-ups were slowing things down and giving me time to prepare for what was next. During our divorce proceedings, my ex-wife's lawyer tried to make a case in front of the judge that I should cover all the court and legal fees. However, I was able to make a strong argument against this. I pointed out that many of the delays in the process were due to mistakes on their end, not mine. There were so many errors in the paperwork they sent me that it took longer to get everything sorted out. Because of this, the judge didn't make me pay those fees. After we got divorced, my ex-wife moved in with the man she left me for. It turns out, he's not a good guy at all and has been abusive. Once I changed all my banking passwords, she suddenly lost access to my money. She quickly realized just how much she relied on my income to support her lifestyle, which was a bit of a shock to her. To make matters worse, she had been managing the payments for the house we were living in, which actually belonged to her uncle. Because she wasn't making the payments, the house almost got taken away by the bank. Her uncle came to me, desperate for help. He told me that if I wanted to stay in the house, I'd need to cover the back payments she missed, which added up to about $15,000 for 6 months of unpaid mortgage. I didn't have that kind of money just lying around, so I suggested buying the house from him instead. To my surprise, he agreed, and now I own the house that used to belong to my ex-wife's grandmother. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. I've received a promotion at work, which came with a nice pay increase. I'm still living in the same house, working on making improvements whenever I can afford to. I haven't found a new girlfriend, but through online dating, I've been meeting new people and enjoying my single life. Looking back, It's almost funny how my ex-wife left a stable situation for someone who turned out to be far from what she expected, and her actions nearly caused her uncle to lose his property. In a way, her decision to divorce me ended up being a huge favor to me, even if it didn't seem like it at the time. She might try to come back to you when she realizes the grass isn't greener on the other side. But remember, don't let her tears sway you, and make sure you never take her back. Now for my update. November 3rd is coming up, marking 1 year since my divorce was finalized. In this past year, I've taken significant steps to improve myself. I started seeing a therapist who encouraged me to focus on personal growth, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I've changed my diet and exercise routine, which led me to lose over 50 pounds. Soccer has always been a passion of mine, so I got back into playing regularly and even started coaching my kids' youth soccer team. On top of that, I rediscovered my love for reading, setting a goal to read a new book every week. My efforts have paid off at work too. I received a big raise and a promotion, which has made it much easier for me to take care of myself and my child. Despite all these positive changes, my ex-wife suddenly wants to be part of our lives again. Her latest relationship, with a man she thought was her savior from our terrible marriage, has turned violent. He's been abusive, and one recent episode was so severe it landed her in the hospital. Our child was with her at the time and had to call for an ambulance. Despite the evidence, my ex-wife refuses to press charges or admit what happened, though the bruises clearly tell the story. Just last night, I attended a family party. This side of the family and I have always gotten along well, and they invited me over. I was polite to my ex-wife, but kept my distance, choosing not to engage in conversation with her. However, her family seems to have convinced her that we're still in love, which couldn't be further from the truth. My ex-wife might have been okay with how things were in our marriage, but I certainly wasn't happy at all. I became so withdrawn and unresponsive, almost like I was just there as another source of money for her. In the last 2 years we were together, she emotionally and financially took advantage of me. During our final year as a married couple, she was cheating on me with another guy. Every time I tried to talk to her about her affair, she denied everything and would run off to his place. When I finally caught her red-handed, she blamed me, saying it was because I wasn't supportive enough. But the truth was, I was giving her all my earnings after paying our bills. I hadn't even bought myself new clothes or shoes for years because of how tight money was. Then, out of the blue, she turned up at one of the soccer games. After the game, she asked me if I was ready to move back in with her. I was totally taken aback and asked her why on earth I would do something like that. She launched into this whole story about how we're still in love, we have a kid together, and how it would be better for our child if we raised them together. I had to tell her straight that I don't have any love or trust left for her at all. I even reminded her that she still owes me over $1,100 for fixing her car. Her response? She said she'd pay me back if we moved in together. That's when I couldn't hold back and just burst out laughing, so hard that I doubled over. Seeing me laugh, she started crying, which honestly just made me laugh even harder. Maybe it wasn't the kindest reaction, but after everything I've been through and all the effort I've put into bettering myself, the idea of going back to her, to the very person who caused me so much pain, just seemed like the worst possible decision. My child still holds a lot of affection for his mother, and I would never do anything to damage their relationship. I believe if there's any turning away to be done, she'll manage that on her own with her actions. The idea that she suggested we move back in together took me by surprise. She didn't offer any apologies or show any signs of regret for her past actions. Instead, she just boldly proposed we start living together again, acting as if she's bringing something valuable to the table. This kind of thinking on her part is pretty out there. And then there's our child, who had to go through the distressing experience of seeing his mom in a harmful situation. That's something that could really affect him deeply. I think it's important to try and secure full custody to protect him from being in such a harmful environment again. Moving on to my latest news, I've met someone really special. I understand that healing from all these events will take time for everyone involved, but I'm hopeful that we can all find our own versions of happiness, whatever decisions we make about our relationships. This past year has been a roller coaster for me. I celebrated the first anniversary of my divorce on November 3rd. Since then, I've been focusing on self-improvement through therapy, and I've been dating. I've met some fantastic women and, admittedly, a few that weren't a great match for me. Just this Monday, my ex-wife came across a Facebook post from my girlfriend, Cher. Cher had shared some photos from a wonderful trip we took together over the weekend. We indulged in delicious food, enjoyed a few drinks, and generally had an incredible time, capturing lots of fun moments and photos. I'm not usually one to document my dates with pictures, but I really like Cher. So, when she asked if she could post our trip pictures and tag me, I was happy to agree. I was pretty sure sharing those photos would stir up some drama, but the reaction I received from my ex-wife and her family was astonishingly intense. Let me give you a bit more background to paint the whole picture. My ex-wife was unfaithful for over a year before we officially ended our marriage. She was seeing someone else even before we separated and moved in with her boyfriend, while our divorce was still being processed. Now, we've been divorced for a year. Throughout our marriage, my ex-wife was both emotionally and financially manipulative and harmful towards me. Unfortunately, she continues to be abusive, but after I posted those photos, she dropped to an entirely new level of hostility and disrespect towards me. On Monday, she twisted the story to make it look like I was the one who had been unfaithful. She complained about how shameful it was for me to humiliate her by sharing pictures on social media where I'm seen with other women. She accused me of being selfish and insensitive for not considering her feelings and labeled me a coward for hiding that I'm seeing other people. She even claimed that by my actions, I've destroyed any hope of us ever getting back together, saying that any love she still had for me was killed off by what she called my cheating ways. The whole time she was making these accusations, she was on the phone, shouting and berating me. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but find the irony of her claims hilarious. I just laughed as she spent a good 30 minutes ranting about how I supposedly ruined our relationship and betrayed her, despite her being the one who cheated and was abusive throughout our relationship. When my ex-wife asked me about my fidelity during our marriage, I was clear with her. I'd been completely faithful and loyal until our relationship officially ended. She didn't stop there, though. She went on to question me about my dating life since our divorce. That made me laugh even more, and I firmly told her that my personal life is no longer her concern since we're not together anymore. I pointed out to her that just as I don't meddle in her affairs, she has no right to intrude into mine. Despite my attempt to set this boundary, she bombarded me with a series of really hurtful and offensive text messages, attacking me and my current girlfriend Cher. She even threatened to send Cher direct messages to tell her all sorts of negative things about being married to me. I told her she was welcome to try if she thought it would make any difference. Then my ex-wife mentioned wanting to meet Cher in person to see what kind of woman she is, suggesting that Cher must be a terrible person for supposedly breaking up a happy marriage. That's when I really had to question her grasp on reality. I reminded her bluntly that our marriage had ended over a year ago, and it was she who had an affair, left me for someone else, and filed for divorce. At this point, my ex-wife broke down crying. Through her tears, she confessed that she had been holding on to hope that we might somehow reconcile. She complained that it was unfair I had moved on and found someone else to spend time with, insisting that I should be focusing on doing things with her and our child, as if we were still a family. This whole conversation highlighted just how disconnected from reality my ex-wife had become, seemingly unable to accept the consequences of her own actions that led to the end of our marriage. My ex-wife recently confessed to me that she's unhappy in her current relationship with her boyfriend, mentioning that he doesn't treat her well. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by this revelation, because I had suspected as much for a while. However, hearing about her problems doesn't bring me any satisfaction. In fact, I really don't have any feelings for her anymore, and I have no desire to get back together with her. I'd prefer it if we didn't have to interact at all. But on a brighter note, my life is going really well right now. I've found happiness with my girlfriend, Cher. She brings so much joy into my life, and I always look forward to spending time with her. She's the last person I talk to before I go to sleep, and the first one I reach out to when I wake up. We're even planning another trip together soon. I'm aware that sharing photos of our trip might trigger a negative reaction from my ex-wife, but to me, living my life happily is worth any backlash. It's clear to me now that my ex-wife has always tried to make me out to be the bad guy, which is a classic narcissistic behavior. To those giving me advice, you're right. I should keep our interactions strictly about our child and avoid getting dragged into long, pointless conversations with her. And yes, I'm prepared for the possibility that she might try to spread lies about me, but I'm focusing on moving forward positively. Now, for a bit of a reflection 2 years on, the day everything changed for me was March 21st, 2022. That late night in 2021, I discovered not just one affair, but evidence of another, and possibly more, after 23 years of marriage, 2 biological children, and a stepchild. I spent a year trying to mend our relationship, but her ongoing issues with mental health, PTSD, substance abuse, and secretive behavior, like finding a second phone she was using, made it impossible to continue trying to reconcile. The final straw in my marriage came when she fired a gun into my side of the bed. That terrifying moment made me decide to end things once and for all. I filed for divorce in April, and by June, it was all over. The relief I felt was enormous. It was like I had been given a second chance at life. Up until that point, I hadn't fully grasped just how much stress and fear I had been living with. Looking back, I can see all the mistakes I made. After discovering her betrayal, I reacted all wrong. Instead of taking time to process everything, I rushed into trying to fix our relationship without addressing the underlying issues. We didn't seek therapy immediately, which was a huge oversight. By the time we did start therapy, it was already too late to make any difference. Our children had already lost all respect for their mother, and I was left feeling a mix of devastation, humiliation, anger, and grief. I was barely getting through the days, feeling like a zombie. In April of last year, I was overwhelmed by the number of people who reached out to offer their support after my ex-wife launched a smear campaign against me on social media. She accused me of everything under the sun, from abuse and rape to stealing a significant amount of money. Of course, she conveniently left out her own actions. I responded by posting a short public service announcement to clear my name, stating that none of the accusations were true. I understood if some people felt they needed to distance themselves from me, but I also hoped others would be willing to give me the chance to prove my innocence. Meanwhile, I focused on improving myself. I got in shape, dropping from 250 pounds to 185. I also made a significant career move, taking on a new role that came with a promotion. I had plans to enjoy a summer of revenge by casually dating through phone apps. During this time, an old high school classmate reached out to me. She lived far away and was going through a similar breakup, having discovered her partner's betrayal about 6 months after mine. We started checking in with each other regularly, offering support and understanding. When I had to travel to Knoxville for work, we found ourselves texting one night, catching up and sharing our experiences. I had been looking forward to experiencing some live music during my stay, talking up how exciting the 2 nights ahead of me were going to be. But contrary to what I initially thought, my summer didn't turn out to be filled with a series of casual flings as I had playfully imagined. Instead, what unfolded was a summer filled with beach outings, live music, tours of distilleries, since she really enjoys whiskey, and simply having a great time, the likes of which I hadn't experienced in years. As summer transitioned into fall, our relationship deepened. We got to meet each other's families, spent Thanksgiving with her family, celebrated Christmas together, and even took a trip to Las Vegas to enjoy a long weekend over the Super Bowl. All these experiences brought us closer. Now, as I celebrate my 52nd birthday, I find myself genuinely happy. The last couple of birthdays were pretty rough, but this one feels special and exciting because she's on her way to move in with me. She's a nurse and managed to quickly find a job in my city here in the South. She's decided to keep her own house and let her daughter rent it out. If a friend were in my situation, I might have cautioned them that it's too much too soon, but for us, it just feels like the right move. We're not rushing into marriage or anything like that. We're just two people who are tired of trying to match our schedules and missing out on time together. We're moving in together to see if our relationship is as strong as we believe it to be. On this forum, a lot of people talk about karma or getting revenge on their exes. In my case, my ex still sends me drunk texts, often saying she wishes we were still together. It's a mix of apologies and blaming me for our breakup. Half the time, she's sorry, and the other half, she still thinks everything was my fault. But the truth is, I'm much happier now without her. I'm less stressed, and I've met someone incredible. She's amazing, way more than I ever expected to be with, and she's really into me, even though I sometimes worry it's too good to be true. So, in a way, I feel like I've already gotten the best kind of revenge by just living my life well. My message to you all is that even though what happened to you because of your spouse or partner was devastating, it's possible to move past it and find happiness again. Sometimes, they don't realize the good thing they had until it's gone. But once you're on the other side, you might see that you're actually better off. I shared my story to inspire you not to give up no matter how tough things get. It's never too late to make a fresh start. Remember to put yourself first and have faith in your ability to recover and thrive. Things really can improve. I managed to start anew at 50, proving it's possible at any age. And that wraps up today's update. If you're following along, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future stories. Until next time, goodbye.